Hi everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Capturing Value from a Circular Supply Chain. My name is Lucinda Broad, and I'm one of the community managers here at 2 Degrees, and I'm going to be your host for this webinar. I'm very pleased to be joined today by Adrian Cole and Simon Drury of Ricardo-AEA, and Jason Monckton of 3663. Now, after today's presentations, there's going to be some time to address any questions that you might have. You can submit a question to me at any point by typing into the Q&A box, which you'll find on the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, and pressing send. And if you have any problems with the technology or the audio during the presentation, please use the chat box on the right-hand side to send me a message. From the drop-down menu, just select to send the message to the host, and I'll get back to you. I'm now going to hand over to Adrian for the first part of today's session. Over to you, Adrian.
Thank you, Lucinda. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. On behalf of Ricardo-AEA, I'd just like to thank you for joining us. Those of you who might be expecting Dr. Adam Reed to introduce this, he was just delayed traveling back from overseas. To avoid him calling in from an Aussie background, I've stepped in to just do the first introduction. As you've seen, we have two excellent speakers lined up for you this afternoon. My colleague Simon Drury will be talking to you first about his experiences of working with businesses on circular approaches to managing their supply chains. And then we'll be followed by Jason from 3663 on his experiences on implementing some of these approaches in his company. So with no further ado, I will pass across to Simon Drury to give the first presentation. Thank you, Simon.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you. So, first of all, welcome to the webinar. My name is Simon Drury. I'm a principal consultant here at Ricardo-AEA. I joined Ricardo-AEA back in 2006 when I joined as the Business Partnerships Director for the then government Envirowise programme. And since then, I've been working on various projects and acting as special advisor to RAP. Prior to that, I was the UK Environment Manager at Center Parcs, responsible for all their CSR, energy management and supply chain and sustainable supply chain engagement strategies within the business. So in all, I've got over 20 years of experience of environmental management and resource management experience. Within this session then, what are we going to do? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of the work that's been done looking at circular economy, and this presentation is looking to build on some of the expertise and work that's been done by people like the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, RSA, and indeed the Green Alliance. But it's looking to take it and look into how the circular economy philosophy and processes can be implemented within business, and how it can help businesses to move away from linear trends of production and move them into more circular type processes. So first of all, then we're going to look at that. Once we've looked at that, what we're going to do is we're going to look at focus on the activities and what you can do and what other businesses are doing, and helping you in thinking about developing your action plans for that. After that, I'm going to hand over to Jason Monckton from 3663, who's going to illustrate some of the points from a business perspective about how they're driving their sustainability engagement, and how they're closing some of the loops within the session. And then we'll move over to your questions and answering some of those prior to the close and the presentation about the work of Ricardo-AEA. So first of all, then let's ask you a metaphoric question, and that is how many of you have seen the cost of your materials go down over the last 5 years? Well, I know from experience that the vast majority of us can't answer the positives to that. That no, we haven't seen those costs go down, those more materials. In fact, some of us have seen our material costs significantly rise over the last 5 years, and we've seen a lot of that. And if we ask the question then, how many of you have been able to raise the prices that you charge your customers in line with those increases in material costs? Again, I know the answer is that that's not true. That most businesses haven't been able to raise their prices in line with those costs. So fundamentally, by that misalignment, what we're looking at is we're looking at businesses generally being on a pathway to zero waste. That our overall profit and margin is being declined over time, and it's the businesses that are addressing the resource efficiency and managing their resources within their organisation as effectively as possible that will be sustainable over time. And so managing resources is important. So what's driving this, and what are we seeing? How do we quantify this? Well, we've seen the work. We've seen the Ellen MacArthur Foundation doing some work on this and looking at the cost of commodities, and we've seen that significantly rise over the last 15 years. And you know, in some cases, we've seen prices rise almost annually over 600% in terms of some of the rare earths and rare earth elements. So resources are a significant driving cost for business. We saw it early late in the 90s with energy prices almost doubling overnight, and we've seen it across a wide range of resources overall. So managing businesses, managing resources is important. We've seen these costs go up and up and up. So what's driving that within business then? Well, we're seeing dwindling resources, and more resources become scarce and driving those down. We're also seeing changes in the quality of ores and materials that we're able to extract as new raw materials, and we're seeing that driving cost in terms of driving cost into the extraction cost of those materials, and indeed in driving the supply and demand curve for those materials as they become scarcer and less available. We're seeing restrictions in terms of the export restrictions from countries. We're seeing places like China restricting some of their rare earths and some of their minerals and elements. Things like neodymium, for example, which is used in the manufacturing of magnets in motors and drives. We're seeing them restrict the exportation of that material because they want to maintain it for their own domestic markets. And this has significantly driven up the costs of these materials globally. We're seeing changes globally. We're seeing the globalization of markets, and that having significant impacts. Who would have thought 10 years ago that a tornado in Southern America would impact the global price of energy as much as it has done in recent years? We're seeing new regulations, both in domestic markets, within European markets, and indeed in global environments, in global countries, really impacting on our ability and our processes and our businesses' ability to sell those materials, etc., into those markets. So being able to manage those things and manage those risks in your business is important. But it's not just about those materials that we're buying and bringing into our business. It's also about thinking about the materials that we are disposing from our business. Fundamentally, we have to move away from thinking about material flows for our organisation as a linear trend and start thinking about it more circular. And within the materials that are leaving our business, fundamentally it's a game of either it's a product or it's some form of waste or end of life product for us. So how do we manage that through? And generally, when I'm talking to business, what they're saying to me is it's fundamentally our waste managers manage that for us. We have that in hand. Thank you very much. But do they really have it in hand for you? Are they maximising the profit and the value of those materials to you as a business, or are they maximising the profit for those materials for themselves? Are they managing and are they driving forward and aware of the environmental and social implications of their recycling methods? Or in this case, well, are we seeing materials going out to Asia and being inappropriately or unacceptably managed in different regimes? We're seeing the industry itself. With a recent report by Plimsoll identified within the waste industry that in the top 1,000, that's the top 1,000 businesses, that over a third of them are classified as failing and in need of significant financial improvement or reinvestment or restructuring within their performance. So you may find that your waste contractors are a risk to you overall in your business strategy and delivery. So managing waste and being understanding and controlling and aware of where your waste is going and the value of that material will help you in order to drive that through. So thinking about those end-of-life materials that as they flow through your business. So thinking about that, fundamentally what we need to do is we need to start moving and rebalancing the way that we think about resources as they flow through our business. We need to turn risk into opportunity. After all, what is a risk but an opportunity that's been identified too late? So thinking about those opportunities for your business, thinking about how you can optimize your performance, your utilization of resources, how you can make your supply chain and processes leaner, slicker, and more effective, and do that in a way that meets the needs of your customers and excites and wows your customer in ever-increasing ways, and supports their ability to deliver their own products and services to their customers, is going to be critical to driving the process and the resource management efficiency within your business. It can cover a whole array of resources, a whole array of materials, all of which are driving into business. So let's start looking at how to tip the balance in your favour within your organisation. Changing the way we think, thinking more circular about what we're doing. So the circular economy, the RSA developed this model, looking at how products and materials and indeed processes can be designed in a more circular way, making sure and thinking about how we can move from these linear trends of production and utilisation of resources into more circular models. How can we maintain the end-of-life value of the materials that are passing through our business? So we're maintaining the value of the waste streams, so that actually we've got a commodity at the end of their life for us, and that their use within our business and indeed our customers' businesses, where they've got a real valuable residual value, which adds value to the whole economy. Changing and thinking about these things isn't easy. It is a complicated area, and requires deep fundamental change in some of the thinking around business models and the way we deliver our return. But fundamentally, it's about returning materials back into the system, whether that's the industrial system of reuse and recycling, or whether it's the actual biological system, such as the nitrogen or carbon cycles within business. Now, within those resources and managing those resources, we often think about those resources and how to optimise them in terms of the waste hierarchy, and thinking about how that is managed. The process of thinking about the resources that we manage through our businesses, and thinking about those resources not necessarily as waste, and what do we do with waste, which a lot of businesses are still doing, thinking about, I have waste, what do I do with it? I recycle it, instead of addressing from the top of the hierarchy down and managing resources. We need to think about the hierarchy in a different way, rethinking about it and thinking away again from these linear trends of recycling, and think about them more in terms of a circular hierarchy and a circular processes. Thinking about a circular process and a circular hierarchy, where the tighter the circle, the more sustainable the option generally is. And indeed, the tighter that circle, the more efficient the process is, and the more sustainable and more profitable they are for the business involved and implementing them, driving down less processing of materials and activities, less transportation, indeed less resources overall. Now, all of this takes a lot of doing and a lot of achieving for business. So thinking about how you can achieve that, one of the fundamental gains and goals of that is really achieving some nice quick wins at the very beginning of the process. Something that's going to help your businesses and you within your business to understand the value of what's going on and understand the potential of achieving that you can achieve through more sustained and more strategic engagement with it. So quick wins are important. For example, this example here, a wholesaler that we worked with within Ricardo-AEA, helping them to look at their materials, helping them to benchmark their performance, how to monitor and measure and control their resources as they pass through their business until they become waste or product. Looking at with them, we help them to identify alternative sources of disposal for things like their food waste within their production, helping them to save again significant money. Looking at more effective and moving plastic recycling and contaminated plastics up the hierarchy, enabling them, but through cleaning of the plastics and washing of the plastics, to enabling them to recycle more effectively and bring those materials out of category C waste or contaminated waste into more viable recycling materials. And again, looking at things like packaging and recycling packaging materials, really making significant savings by doing things such as returnable packaging schemes or upgrading the materials they're doing. Working with a food processor as operation, we help them to address issues and within their businesses, looking at how they can incentivize customers to reduce the amount of deliveries they have and to control and manage the transportation of those materials and products more effectively within the systems, looking at end of life, stock days and those aspects of the system, but really working together with their suppliers and their customers to make sure that they're optimising the flow through of business and managing those seasonal trends within their delivery. Again, looking at alternative methods of disposal of waste streams, and really helping them to look at new standards in terms of their packaging, moving to standardised containers for boxes, but helping them to move those standards, achieving significant savings within that, whilst upgrading and improving the quality of the materials that they're utilising, so they can end up those materials being recycled and reused more effectively going forward, and again achieving and maintaining significant savings for their business and indeed for their supply chain. So how to focus in having identified some of those quick wins, which again were there to help develop buy-in for the business. If we can find opportunities and realise opportunities like those in relatively short time and deliver significant payback savings in that short period of time, then moving on to bigger projects and more sustainable delivery of circular economy can become possible. Now, the landscape and the Green Alliance have done some fantastic work here, identifying out and pulling out the elements of the circular economy and the considerations within the circular economy that need to be addressed. But it's complicated. There's a lot to it. That some of these areas and some of these aspects, in fact, I would imagine the vast majority of these areas are not areas where you have, within your business, the right levels of control. So picking those aspects, picking your battles, focusing your activities on those parts of these dynamic circles that have an impact, that you have either got the pressure from your customers to change the way you're working, or indeed you have control or leverage and influence over making them happen within your supply chain, is important. So targeting it out, focusing in on those core areas and those core aspects of your business where you can make real change. Help your customers to meet their needs and objectives for their sustainability and resource management, and do that in a way that adds value to both of your organisations. Now, in my experience within business, when you go into manufacturing organisations, what we tend to find is they've got a very good control over and a very high understanding of what it is that they do. They may have implemented Kaizen, Lean, Six Sigma, various other total quality type management type systems and driving quality and efficiencies and lean processes within their organisation and within the things that they do. But what we tend to find is one of the areas that is missed out is focusing on the interactions between you as a business and what you do and how you develop your products and services, and the needs and aspirations of your customers and your suppliers, making sure that you're addressing and are aware of things like their standard operating procedures, their ability and capabilities and desire to recycle and drive through efficiencies within their business, and understanding how your products and services and the way that you deliver them impacts on their operations within their businesses. Are you 100% supporting and driving efficiency within their business, or are you creating them issues and problems with waste streams and materials that they can't recycle or are having difficulty disposing of it? So thinking about those things and thinking about those materials is important. Really understanding, do you really know what it is that your customer wants from your product and service? And by that I mean really understand, not what's necessarily in the contract, what's in the specification, but understanding it from an operational perspective within their business and their processes. Thinking about that then, and thinking about those processes, thinking about the value chain, how the value chain affects your business, and how it affects your human resources, your technology, your processes, and indeed your own procurement strategy, but thinking about how that works down through the value chain of your operations and within your wider supply chain, and how you're supporting those products and services will enable you to drive forward on this agenda, moving it forward. So some critical questions you have to ask. This isn't necessarily questions you have to ask your suppliers. Fundamentally, it's questions you have to ask yourself within your organisation, and then expand out from there. What are the resources that you're buying and utilising within your business, and where are you buying them from, how are you sourcing them, and how effectively are you doing it? Where are you adding value, both value within your organisation, but value to your customers? How are you managing, and how are you managing those resources, and how effectively are they being managed? What percentage of the materials coming into your site, whether that's energy, water, packaging, or deep raw product, is coming on your site, and how well effectively are you managing it, and what percentage of that is becoming waste as a result of errors? Thinking about these simple questions will enable you as a business to address and identify the opportunities that you have in order to improve your performance, whether you are best in class, whether you need to drive forward to best in class, in order to take competitive advantage against your customers. And how do your customers value those products and services for you? Generally, as we're talking to businesses, we find that they feel that they've already done this. They've already addressed a lot of these issues. Their pallets of material are strategically designed to be very efficient. The shrink wrap is pre-tensioned, so it goes around the boxes and contains the pallets in a stable environment to enable multi-pallet stacking, all those sort of things. But what we find is needs to be done. You need to consider more. There's always more you can do. Do you need the pallet? Do you need the boxes? Do you need the shrink wrap on it? There are alternative systems that you can use, such as removing the boxes on these butter boxes. They weren't needed. The butter was firm enough. Within the factory, they decided they needed the boxes in order to form the butter into the correct shape. By providing them with an alternative of creating a pre-form that is reusable for that box, instead of the box, we're able to remove the box entirely from the process. The shrink wrap wasn't needed. You could move away to more like this pallet sock, which is reusable and retainable. And indeed, by moving to slip sheets, you can remove the need for pallets altogether. But working with supply chain, working with those partners to identify these opportunities to see what is practical is core to that within your organisation. But then we're still talking, and when we're talking about the value chain, we're still talking about linear trains of production and linear chains of thought. We need to change that and think about these processes in a more sustainable way, in a more circular process, and thinking about our adding value and our consideration of the value chain as a circular and continuous process of engagement and improvement within the business. We need to change the way we think. We need to change the way we think about different resources. We think about the people that we operate, the people that we manage in our businesses, that we employ. We think about our offices. We think about the plant and machinery that offices as sustainable resources that we like to keep and retain within our businesses for prolonged periods of time. We need to think about resources and these consumable resources in the same way, and think about what methods, what systems and processes we can do to retain those materials and the value of those materials within our business for longer. Thinking about these linear trends, thinking about these processes, and linking them to a circular consideration of the waste hierarchy can really optimise the value that those materials bring to your business. So you're really reaping the benefits of those materials going forward, both in terms of your operational performance, your business productivity, and indeed your revenue generated and retained value within the business, but also in terms of your customer value, how your customers see you, and how by the way that you're helping them to drive efficiencies for their business and indeed meet their own environmental objectives. So now thinking about those issues and thinking about that, let's have a look at some nice quick top 10 tips, if you like, or top 10 things we need to develop in terms of developing our action plans to drive these things forward within the business. Just a simple process here, just a simple consideration. Changing your mindset. Think again. It's not just a case of managing waste and thinking about recycling. It's about moving towards a whole process of managing resources and managing the resources and how they flow within your business and how you can retain them and retain the value within your business in some way, shape and form. Map those material flows. Look, thinking about the material flows and how they flow through your business. Where are they converted from resource to waste material or end of life materials, and how effectively are you managing those processes in order to prevent that from happening? What processes and controls do you have in place, and how effectively are you managing and bringing in and thinking about closing those loops of those and retaining that value? Determine the cost of those materials and those resources as they flow through your business. Remember, the material that you buy into your business is worth a lot more by the time it leaves your business, because as it passes through your businesses, everything you do to it, whether it's stacking it in the warehouse, whether it's heating it, pumping it, adding water to it, you're adding value to as it goes through. So where, for example, water may come into your business at £2.40 a cubic metre, by the time it leaves your business, it might down the sewage pipe, it may be a value of £15 by the time you've softened it, heated it, pumped it, converted it to steam. All those things add value to that process. Think about how you're engaging staff and how you're engaging with your suppliers and how your suppliers are either aiding or hindering your process, and vice versa, how you are doing the same to your customers, and how you can support and remove unnecessary non-added value materials and resources or processes from your offering and the materials you're offering, but increase customer satisfaction and customer drive through that momentum. Prioritise your action plans, set up smart objectives, all those sort of things as with normal business practice. But monitor the impact, monitor the performance of what you're doing. Fundamentally, time and time again, I see it in businesses where they identify the opportunity, they develop their business case for a project, they get the funding for the project, but they never go back and check what actually impact that project has. Did it meet the objectives? Did it meet those payback values that they were expecting? Meeting those things and being able to be in a process to review them and identify what worked, what didn't work, and why, is really important, because it gives you the ability to talk to your customers and tell them what you've done, how you've improved the performance of your business, and how you've been able to reduce their environmental impact through the products and services that they buy from you within your business. Driving those communications processes, showing them how you're supporting their activities and their achievement of their environmental standards, whether that's ISO 14001 or an internal standard for their own right, or indeed helping them to achieve their own carbon objectives by providing lower carbon systems. Thinking about these things then, thinking about short-term wins, thinking about the activities, what is it you can do? Well, there's a whole raft of things you can do within your business, driving those things and driving them forward within your business. Thinking about how you can benchmark, thinking about zero waste to landfill as an initial target, as initial engagement within the way that you process. Thinking about maximising your reduction and reuse of materials and recycling within the processes. And businesses that we at Ricardo-AEA have worked with have had some significant savings within this. Working with major retailer, helping them to identify in their business significant savings, 8% reductions in their total energy consumption, 7% of their total water, and indeed 10% in their waste production. Working with a clothing retailer, helping them to manage energy within their store and managing their processes. Help them within their 170 stores identify savings in excess of 2 million euros per year, ongoing within the process within their business. So again, significant savings. Then moving on to that medium-term MTP type product, medium-term plan type product processes. Engaging with your suppliers, thinking about and mapping your value chain and the opportunities within your value chain to make real significant change. Thinking about how you align your contracts with the needs and aspirations of your customers, and making sure that you're driving efficiencies within the processes that meet both your needs, and that you're enabling and empowering them to make step changes within their environmental performance at the same time. Think about supply chain partnerships, mutually beneficial partnerships with each other that really support each other's engagement within the partnership and drive through and innovate new products and services that are efficient within that. So working with Manchester United last year with 12 of their suppliers, I helped them to identify an excess of £500,000 savings in very short time across both energy, water, waste, and indeed product and design and packaging. Helping a quick service restaurant, a sandwich shop, we helped them to identify in excess of £3 million for a similar process within their organisation. The savings are there, the potential is there, whether it's within packaging, whether it's in energy, water, or indeed transport and logistics within the business. In the more long term, then, looking at how you can joint service delivery with your supply chain, meeting needs, cutting out middle processes and direct delivery. Think about materials for stewardship, maintaining the ownership of the materials that you buy into your business. Thinking about moving away from models, sales models, into more leasing models and models such as the reinvestment or remanufacturing materials, such as the great work that's been done by Caterpillar in terms of their remanufacturing. That's not just refurbishing their plant and their digging equipment. That's fundamentally remanufacturing old bits of plant that come back to them to the standard where it meets the standard of new product and is sellable as new product. Fundamental step change. Major retailer, B&Q have worked together and done some work. A fantastic case study with the Carbon Trust, looking at their energy efficiency processes and energy efficiency systems within their business, and have really driven down and created a real market for energy efficiency and green products within their products and services. And again, large clusters of the dairy processes and businesses really working to drive down and drive investments in capital to drive down water efficiency and drive down water consumption within their processes, within their operation. The operation and the benefits and the engagement within these sort of strategies and taking them forward, but thinking about them in a more circular manner, in a more circular process about maintaining the value and retention of those materials within your processes and within your business operation is fundamental to driving this forward. Thinking about how you as a business can drive forward and create a sustained program of engagement that will enable you to do this and build the support and engagement within your organisation is the fundamental driver. Helping your business to move away from being on a pathway to zero, waste, and converting the pathway to zero waste into a pathway to again sustainable development within your organisation, but also doing that in a way that moves you away from being on a pathway not only to zero waste, but a pathway to zero profit and a pathway to zero materials is going to be fundamentally important to us all. Marks & Spencer's chief executive said only last week that a business that fails to address and move towards a circular economy is one that will die. So making sure that your business is taking these things forward and thinking about these as you go forward will enable you as an organisation to make sure that you maintain your profits. The businesses around you that don't do it, you may be the sole survivor within those businesses. With that, I'd like to thank you. That's the end of my presentation. And with that, what I'd like to do now is hand you over to Jason Monkton from 3663, who's going to give you the perspective from business about how 3663 are addressing these issues and that's closing some circles within their business. Jason.
Thank you, Simon. I'd like to start with just giving a brief overview of 3663 as a business, what we do, the scale of the business and so on. Essentially, we are a multi-temperature food storage and distribution business, owned by a South African company, but we are UK based as it is. That gives you some idea of the scale of the business. the 700 vehicles there is perhaps the public face of the business in the UK, as in that's what most of you may have seen within the country. The bottom point there, about 45,000 deliveries to our customers. Our customer base is essentially any organisation with a catering requirement. This could be schools, hospitals, restaurants, prisons, you name it. We or a competitor will supply them. A summary really of some sustainability initiatives within the business over the last sort of 5, 6, 7 years. Just to summarise that, the main points there you can see, but investing over £3 million in these initiatives has resulted now that on an annual basis we save over £4 million through those initiatives, which is quite an obvious sign of by focusing on these things is the right thing to do for our business. On top of that, perhaps more where I come in my role is the carbon emissions and so on, which is more my environmental role, which is an additional side. But as far as the business goes, the cost savings are the major point there. Just to link in with the sort of circular economy, I just wanted to cover on a few points, few examples really of what we're doing as a business, not just ourselves, but expanding that into the supply chain. That's where the work with AEA Ricardo comes in. Perhaps the most well-known or the initiative we're most proud of over the last few years is our project on the use of used cooking oil. Essentially, the idea here is that the customer has a waste product, essentially the used cooking oil, that is then collected and processed into biofuel for use in our delivery fleet. So essentially the customer is making good use of that waste in reducing their own supply chain. That's the idea in a nutshell. We do work with a specialist waste-to-energy company who collect the waste on our behalf. Again, over the 6 years of the project, we have saved nearly 20,000 tonnes of carbon by using this fuel. But it's a big push from our customers who are quite proud of this project. Just to give you an idea of some of our customers who are on the actual scheme themselves. I'm not going to list those there, but again, that gives you an idea of the variety of our customer base. And these ones in particular, a selection of those that take up on the waste oil recycling scheme. Just some quotes there from a couple of our customers, but the main point to take away from those really is that although these few slides here have just focused on one particular project, the value that our customers are placing on such projects is becoming more and more relevant and more of a driver for us to work on. And that's the main point to take away from that. On the packaging side, okay, the reduce, reuse, recycle has been the foundation of our sustainability initiative over the last 15 years, and that's where it all really started. Some figures on the waste packaging there that we've recycled. The important point, by recycling, we've actually saved over made over £500,000 in revenue, but there's a similar sort of figure in the estimated cost savings of avoiding waste to landfill. Now, I mentioned about the waste oil scheme and where our customers come in and that being very valuable to them. Packaging is becoming another area where they're really keen. Not only providing packaging that is recyclable or has recycled content, but we're increasingly being asked to try and provide a solution where we will collect waste packaging that we've delivered our product in from them. The main obstacle to that, to be honest, is the food hygiene requirements. That's what we do as a business, so we need to protect that as a priority. But we are working on trying to come around with some solutions for this. On the waste side, just briefly, we've set ourselves a target of zero waste to landfill by 2015. Now, we had a very disjointed approach initially with our 23 depots, where they would each have their own waste contractor. But to help us meet this target, we've decided to partner up with a nationwide waste contractor. And essentially, they're sharing the same vision that we have as far as our waste goes. But that is at the moment just with our waste. We have got a scheme in place which has been launched earlier this year, where, again, working with the same partner, we are providing a service where customers may take up a link where the waste is collected from them, but it's actually by the waste partner rather than by 3663. Now, on the supply chain side of things, I think the important point to me really here is that we've had supply chain initiatives historically going back sort of 2005, 2006, but it really centred around helping our own brand suppliers improve their environmental performance and achieve ISO 14001 certification. And that's pretty much where it sort of got to and then levelled off. Now, I did try to, myself as a 3663 representative, encourage our supply chain to join in with workshops looking at the project areas there, or some of those areas. But I think on reflection, that was on a no-win situation there, because essentially, although 3663, we are experts in what we do, we're not experts in what our suppliers do, because we don't manufacture food, we store and distribute it. That's what we're experts in. And I think I think there's probably, perhaps there was some reluctance initially from some of our suppliers wanting to share all their energy information and so on with us, which is understandable. But what we found is since, earlier this year, 2013, we started a project with Ricardo-AEA on behalf of RAP, where we launched this in May. We had a kick-off meeting, really, just to try and encourage interest. And I'm quite pleased to say that we've had between 30 and 40 of our own brand suppliers who've seen the benefits that this could offer. And I think it's that sort of independent link that Ricardo-AEA and RAP have provided that has probably encouraged them to take part. It's all confidential, so there's no sort of uncertainty about whether 3663 will try and, improve price and so on by, taking some of the share of any savings that our suppliers have had, and that's where I think it's going to work really well. We've only had 4 workshops so far, with another one planned next month, and it's too early really to say we've demonstrated clear savings, but we've identified potential there for our suppliers of over £200,000, which is where the crucial thing comes in from my point of view on our supply chain. Another point on the supply chain side of things, for those of you that may have ISO 14001 certification, there's some changes being recommended for 2015, whereby to retain or gain ISO 14001 accreditation, the organisation needs to demonstrate working with its supply chain on improving environmental performance. I think essentially through this partnership, we can already demonstrate we've achieved that, and I'm quite confident that come 2015 we will be quite happy with retaining ISO 14001. That really in a nutshell is what my presentation for today was about, so thank you for listening, and I'll pass you back over to Adrian.
Thank you, Jason and Simon, for 2 excellent presentations there. I hope the audience found those as interesting as I did. We have some questions coming through, so just to be able to answer as many of those as we can, I'll press on. And I think the first one, Simon, is primarily addressed to you, and it's an interesting one because the questioner asks a lot of what you discussed. I think this ties into your slides around Lean Six Sigma Kaizen approaches are particularly relevant to the manufacturing sector. As a business in the hospitality sector, can you explain how some of the circular economy principles that you talked about would apply in that kind of service sector more, and what sort of things could a business of that kind do?
Yeah, I mean, fundamentally with the service sector, the processes are very similar. Your consumption and utilisation of resources within the business is very similar. One of the things that I've seen is I've seen within the hospitality sector, there's been very little take up of things like Lean Six Sigma type processes, and as such, these systems and processes such as Lean Six Sigma are just as valuable to those sectors. Hospitality industry, whether that's a hotel or whatever, those industries can just as well manage Lean Six Sigma type processes within their organisation, looking on things like return on invested capital, looking and targeting and on what's adding value and what is adding value to the customer and the guest experience, for example's sake. How are you managing? What is it that you're doing that's creating that wow factor, that's giving your guest the best experience possible and enhancing that, and then looking at what isn't adding to that value and identifying those opportunities and working through and identifying how you can adapt and change those processes and procedures. Within things like the consultancy industry where I'm from, thinking about how you can lean process and manage your processes and procedures for delivery. You know, if you're thinking about developing a report process, how much time is that report spent waiting for somebody to look at it, waiting for somebody to add something to it, waiting for somebody to review it? Fundamentally, you find in a lot of businesses that we've supported that can be up to 90% of the time it takes to develop a report from start to finish. It can be literally sat waiting in somebody's inbox, waiting for them to come off leave, waiting for them to come back and have a look at it or have the time to address it. So how can you manage those efficiencies? How can you drive those down and create and remove that wasted time and wasted effort from the processes? Is fundamentally the driver, if you like, for the hospitality and sector as a whole, and that indeed that whole service sector.
Okay, thanks, Simon. Jason, a detailed question for you when your presentation has come in. A question is asked, the £4 million cost savings that you mentioned, I think they're asking for a sense of the scale of that against the business, or the areas of the business you did that in.
Well, that's that. I don't have the answer as such to that, but I think the point of my slide was that the capex figure that I mentioned, about £3 million we invested since 2006. That's capex expenditure over since 2006 on fuel efficiency and energy efficiency on depots and that sort of area. And the savings we've realised from, say, energy efficiency, obviously the costs going up, we now reduce our energy costs. So if we'd not actually spent that money up front, we'd be spending a lot more on energy at the moment. So, and same with the fuel efficiency as well for our vehicles. So the 4 million saving is an estimation of what we save year on year as a result of that 3 million capex.
Yeah. So I think the key point you're making is that there's a real payback in a relatively short time on these.
Yes.
I think there's often some scepticism in business that won't happen, but I think it's really good to see that you've got concrete evidence and reassurance, I guess, back to your financial director that the money invested was well spent.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
A lot of the work that we've done, Adrian, with businesses, what we've found is a lot of those quick wins and those quick initiatives that build capacity and build trust, if you like, and confidence within the business to take action. They can typically be paybacks of less than 12 months to do it, and in a majority of cases they can be literally about changing decisions. People in every part of the business have the ability to make a decision. They can make good decisions for the environment or poor decisions for the environment. Empowering them to make the right decisions is a critical part of this. So driving those efficiencies down, it takes quite often you can achieve real savings just through effective awareness campaigns and then empowering people to make good decisions.
Yeah, thank you. A question here for you, Simon, I think, although if possible Jason may have a views as well, because it's got some aspects of logistics in it. I think this is something we've seen many times. So the question is, someone has spoken to their supplier about the delivery system they use to give them. The business is a food manufacturer and its supply of sources into ready meals. The current supplier is giving them this particular ingredient in 1 litre tins. Clearly that creates a number of problems for them in terms of handling those tins, finding an outlet for them, disposal, recycling and washing them and whatever needs to be done. They've asked their supplier to start delivering in larger containers, IBCs or whatever, and so far they've not proved willing to do that. Have you got any insights upon approaches that business could take in negotiations with its supplier because as often, like as you're pointing out, it's a heart and minds thing here, isn't it? It's not you can talk numbers all day, but if someone just won't do it for whatever reason, for the lethargy, they've always done it. Embedded standard operating systems won't allow them to do it or whatever. So what's the approach they can take to change this attitude?
Yeah, I've seen this problem before, and it's fundamentally a question of you hit the barrier of no, that's our product. This is the way our product comes. We're not changing our process for you type comments that you get from businesses, and I see that quite often in businesses. And fundamentally, it can be as simple as you're talking to the wrong person. If you're talking to the sales and the business development manager about these sort of issues, then actually you may be talking to the wrong person because they can see the value in selling you a more expensive product in tins, etc., and not changing their processes at all. And as such, you may need to think about the person that you're talking to and how you're engaging it. If the company that you're buying from has a sustainability manager or a process engineer, or indeed go straight to the board and say, look, we've got this opportunity. We buy X amount of product from you a year. We want to work with you. How much would it cost for you to create an outlet within your processes so you can fill an IBC for the product for us, and so that we can manage it more effectively? That removes the cost of tins from your processes and our processes, and all the associated costs for that to our mutual benefit, and thinking about those costs. And indeed, possibly looking at an initial sharing of the cost of changing the process in order to achieve that in some way, shape, and form. But it is often the case that you hit this barrier of that's not the way we deliver, and it's creating and finding the right gatekeeper within the organisation that has the authority to make the change. Finding where you can create and have the leverage within that organisation to make it happen. And your everyday point of contact will probably not be the right person to do that in the same way. So thinking about the alternatives, think about the cost potentials for it. How much are the tins costing you? How much are they costing your supplier? And what is the benefits of moving to let's face it, a returnable IBC, as you've identified, is I would imagine a no-brainer for both of you financially, if you can support and find the right people to talk to.
I guess there's also the function of looking for another supplier.
Exactly.
And you mentioned benchmarking, and that applies to everyone in all stages of supply chain. So if someone's not responding, then seek other opportunities.
In the food industries, that's not always a viable option, because it can change the nature of the product that you're delivering to your customer.
Yeah, good point. Another question here for Jason, picking up on your point, Jason, about working with your suppliers, and the question, the comment here is, I think someone here has maybe tried this themselves, or been at the receiving end of some supply discussions, and suggests that the benefits are often more to the higher up the supply chain than the lower down parts of the supply chain. I think you were making the point at the end that in the current work you're doing in the RAP project, the focus is very much on benefiting your suppliers. But can you comment more widely on that? Perhaps in the oil, the cooking oil project, what are the benefits to the restaurants, people who are engaging in that? Do they see benefits?
I think that on the cooking oil project, the benefits really are sort of from mentioning about the hearts and minds type area. Well, they are the environmental stroke sustainability story, essentially. So I think in the food service industry we are relatively sort of unique in what we do with the waste oil project. There are other food service providers who will collect waste oil, but they will actually use it then for fueling their depots, etc. So the whole sort of virtuous circle side of things is one where it just gets people really thinking about it and thinking, yeah, we're actually we're helping the customer reduce their supply chain because we're delivering back to them on lower carbon fuels. But as far as the benefits of some of these programs and not always seeing, or the benefits not always being equally shared, I think that's probably the beauty about having sort of a neutral intermediaries to lead these things on average. So rather than just 3663 saying to our supply chain, right, come and meet with us and look at ways of saving energy and so on. The fact that we've partnered with AA, Ricardo and RAP to deliver that, it's just putting that distance between the two. So we're actually focusing on our suppliers benefiting from all the savings, rather than any sort of benefit to us as such, apart from the fact that we can then tell the good story, essentially, of how we're working with our supply chain, and that's the basis of it.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, and as the project manager for this one, from our perspective, one of the fundamentally important things for this is about driving those efficiencies through the processes and making sure we add value for both organisations. So identifying not only the projects that will save the supplier money, but also the projects that will where they can work together and through effectively managing and changing the processes, improve the benefits and create benefit for both organisations. So it's fundamentally driving a win-win-win process for all the organisations involved.
Thank you, Simon. Okay, I'm conscious of time, so thanks to everyone who's fired in questions. I've tried to summarise them together so we can try and cover all the topics people have asked about, so I hope that they've got the answers they want. Just finally, I'd like to take a chance to introduce people who don't know us to Ricardo-AEA. We are part of the Ricardo Group, which is a major multinational engineering consultancy, and you can see a snapshot there of where we operate around the world. We bring in Ricardo-AEA the significant legacy of AEA's past work for public and private sector, particularly in this area of developing good practice on waste minimisation, resource efficiency, and how that now translates into circular economy approaches that we've heard about this afternoon. We would be very pleased to talk to anyone about any ideas they have in their business or in research project ideas, so feel free to get in touch. This slide here gives you a little bit more detail about some of the things we do in the area of waste resource efficiency and the number of people we have and the kind of topics and services we cover. But do feel free to get in touch. The little data diagram there that we've just saw gives you the spread of stuff we're doing, and some contact details for us on the end there. So again, just like to thank everyone for joining in this afternoon. I hope you found that interesting and useful in turning some of the theory of circular economy into practical approaches that you can do in your business and organisations now. So thanks again for joining in, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thanks everyone. I'm going to be posting a recording of this session probably first thing tomorrow, and I'll email the link out to you when that's live. Thanks for joining everyone, and have a good day.